Well, I'm going to put a virtual DOS machine on my Windows
Well, I don't
7
do it in
machine
DOS.
and
I'm
see if I
using
can
it in,
crash test it with FilePro then.
yeah, I'm using it in the Linux version, but there is a transfer program that we can do to transfer it over,
Yeah.
and that's good stuff. How long have we been talking,
We've
Richard?
been talking over 40 minutes.
Over 40 minutes. He wanted to talk for 5 minutes.
Yep.
What else is up down there that's bothering you that we can do some good for the people? Because we're going to put these up on YouTube, and we'll have an answer for that LLC thing, and we'll have an answer for the TN Visa part. Is there something else that's particularly concerning you
The
down there?
RRSPs in California issue is a major
Oh, you're right. Big one.
issue that brings clients to me. I mean, I redo 3 years, 6 years worth of returns all the time. California is so desperate for money this year that they said they were issuing, and you probably know it, IOUs to any corporation
Absolutely.
that had a refund. They got an IOU. Anybody who had an individual that had a tax refund, it was delayed by exactly 1 month with no interest added because they couldn't afford it. They bumped up the estimated payments requirement, which is installments for Canadian purposes. So they want 60% instead of, 4 equal payments. Now they want 60% in the first 2 payments. So they are going after penalties left and right and not waiving for any reasonable cause. So that having been said, everybody in California who has an RRSP has to have shown the income on it.
That's correct.
Okay. When they cash it, it's a non-issue. When you cash it in, except to the extent you sold investments inside the RRSP and created a gain or a loss, the actual cashing of it isn't an issue. So it's not something to be really afraid of, because if you hold a whole bunch of mutual funds, you're probably not making a lot of income. Just pay your 9.3%, and the Franchise Tax Board won't come and take your house.
That's correct. But I had one today that I thought, it was just today.
I get one every week.
I'm sorry, yesterday I had one that I thought was really good.
Uh-huh.
And he'd lost $330,000 in his RRSP in 2008.
And he shouldn't be making an election for federal purposes, possibly. Maybe he should just be letting it go.
Well, he had an interesting thing because he's never reported it on federally or statewide.
Or then to the Treasury Department
or the Treasury. He had a CPA doing his tax return. Never reported never filled in the TDF 90s. Didn't do the 8891s or 3520 or the old 8945 elections.
Mm-hmm.
He just has never thought about it. He has a couple. He had another account in Canada as well, and which obviously had more than $10,000 in it. And the account, actually, maybe I'm getting 2 people to get mixed up here. Doesn't matter. The pure, cold, hard fact, though, was that we had another one who had over $10,000 worth of interest. So because they had over $10,000 worth of interest, Jane was going to get that one. Had another call come in off the air that we got to deal with. The other one was where she had been reporting over $10,000 worth of interest from a Canadian source every year, and the California accountant, again, I hate to say it, a CPA, had been checking no to question 7 every year, even though they got the Bank of Montreal down with $10,000 worth of interest. And my understanding is that as of last June, they are absolutely now going to put $10,000 fines on people if they don't fill in Schedule B and check no. Even if you have a foreign account of any sort, even if it's only got $100 on it, they want you to fill in Schedule B, because if you look at the rules for Schedule B, it says fill it in if you got income over this amount or this, or you have a foreign account.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't fill in the foreign account and check off no to say you've got less than $10,000, they're going to fine you $10,000 as well on that one. And I got that from one of the IRS.
Just one of their announcements, the email announcement.
Well, no, not that. Was one of the ones where you dial in. I can't remember. I'm not sure which word it was. The teleconferences, yeah. And then they say they're going to invoke, as of last October, the $10,000 fine minimum for not filing your TDF 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what they've said, and there was an amnesty up until then.
Yeah.
Now, you know the whole UBS, Switzerland fiasco, if you want to call it that, where Switzerland had their secrecy laws. Well, they've effectively gone away for all intents and purposes in the eyes of the IRS. The countries bordering Switzerland are now piercing that veil. Italy is one that I'm specifically aware of. And so they are, IRS is the one that started this whole UBS thing, and they're getting Swiss banks to provide information on every U.S. resident that has an account.
But as of just 3 or 4 days ago, the Swiss courts ruled against the IRS, and
Oh, it's probably going to go on for years.
And drop the
I
veil,
have no
basically, yeah.
doubt about
well,
that.
no, the Swiss courts ruled against them, and 27 U.S. citizens have had their privacy protected by Swiss law. In other words, the banks are not allowed to give out the information.
Mhm.
But that doesn't matter much in terms of the penalties, because the IRS knows they've got an account, they haven't been reporting it, so they can
And
give.
in the long term, Switzerland will be blacklisted,
Yeah.
just like Turks and Caicos, and they'll be taken out of the worldwide banking system if they don't cooperate with high-level governments and they help people shelter money. That's
Well,
just the way the world is today.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I personally now know 3 people who have been fined $10,000 to $100,000, $10,000, $60,000, and $100,000 for failure to report. I have talked to them who are being penalized for not reporting on a TDF 90. How many people do you know, or how many people have you met,
None.
or have you met any?
None.
None.
None. Now, I just had a major investment brokerage firm have their attorney call me from New York City, and they have a client that they're managing millions, I guess, for, and they had me do voluntary disclosure for one of their clients that had RRSPs in excess of $1 million. So that happened. That's a big one that has happened after the amnesty ended, and that's just gone in recently within the last month, so I wouldn't know what they're really going to do on that one.
Okay, well, it's a good one for us to look
Yeah,
forward
time
to.
is going to tell on that one. Now, it's always better to be proactive, because if they ask you first, you're not getting out of any penalties in general.
Well, for the audience, I want people to know that the 68-year-old lady who got the $60,000 fine also got a 6-month jail term. She spent 1 month in jail, or 1 day in jail. She didn't even stay overnight. They didn't.
Well, we don't have a lot of extra room in our jail.
They
so
don't
we
want
can-
to. Didn't
we'll
want to
get
keep
through
her.
as quick as we can.
But Jerome Schneider, a Vancouver guy, he got a $100,000 fine and a 6-month jail sentence, and served every single day of the jail sentence, plus time in advance of the actual sentence, and he didn't get any credit for time served.
Mhm.
And the other lady, are you ready for this?
Mm.
Well, guess how old she was?
I have no idea. It could be
105.
84 to 100.
105, and she got a $10,000 fine.
Yeah.
And I'm proud to say that we actually got it canceled. I phoned the IRS at L'Enfant Plaza in Washington, D.C., and talked to a lady, doesn't matter what her name was, and I said, but she's 105 years old. Her Dutch niece comes from Holland twice a year to get her tax returns done. The tax return was done by one of the big 6 CA firms. She had $38,000 worth of interest showing on Schedule B, no checked off on Schedule 7, and she got an arbitrary $10,000 fine. And this lady at the IRS, it's the only time I still feel, I phoned and I said, but she's 105 years old, and explained about the niece and so on. So she said, Mr. Ingram, I have never canceled one of these before, but this one is canceled. So
It's part of this is jurisdictional too, because it's not under the same title of the federal code as the Internal Revenue Code. It's covered under banking rules. It's administered by Treasury Department directly, or it's under their jurisdiction, and they allow IRS to administer the rules, as opposed to income tax rules, which are definitely IRS. So sometimes get caught in a government loop where nobody's going to take responsibility to help you. And that's the problem.
Well, I actually got shopped by somebody from Treasury back in May or June. And I had a fellow sitting here who I kept on we got to report all this stuff, and I'm just about stood up and hit him over the head with a rolled newspaper because he kept on saying, well, I'm not going to. And I looked at him and I said, are you with the IRS or Treasury? He looked at me and he said, Treasury. And they were up here shopping shopping accountants. And
well, they're pretty serious on tax preparer penalties here. I mean,